We're living in the information age, with all of the answers. What would your response be on the following? Why is there more matter than antimatter? What is consciousness? Why do living things age? What will the total impact of climate change be on world agriculture? It may be a while before we've cracked those conundrums, but what if we could solve some even more immediate problems, such as achieving food and water security in Africa, making renewable energy affordable for the people of the continent, and eliminating poverty-related diseases? The Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences at the University of Pretoria strives to answer as yet unanswered questions. Meet grand challenges and achieve sustainable development goals. Research focuses on 4 major fields, covering physical and environmental sciences, biosciences, big data, and agricultural sciences. As a student, you will be mentored by expert scientists while developing your knowledge and skills in state-of-the-art research facilities, and you can access the support you need to excel in a challenging academic environment. 13 departments make up the faculty, ranging from actuarial science to zoology, literally from A to Z, preparing you for a career and the future. An internationally recognized qualification will unlock opportunities across the globe and enable you to tackle the questions, problems, and mysteries of tomorrow. The Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences at UP, maximizing your potential for future impact.
Good morning. Welcome to the third Conversations at NAS. Conversations at NAS is the place where we have conversations that shift boundaries. Today, we recognize and acknowledge the contribution of all women in our faculty. NAS comprises of 13 academic departments, 9 of which are currently led by female heads of departments. We've got Ms. Marley Venter from Actuarial Science, we've got Prof. Amanda Bastos from Zoology and Entomology, Professor Esti van Marle Koster from Animal Science, Professor Sanushka Naidu, Biochemistry, Genetics and Microbiology, Professor Patricia Forbes, Acting Chemistry, Professor Elna Buys, Department of Consumer and Food Sciences, Professor Andriette Becker from Department of Statistics, Professor Serena Kutsia from Geography, Geoinformatics and Meteorology, got Professor Cheryl Hendricks from Agricultural Economics, Extension and Rural Development, and then we also have 2 heads of departments with affiliated with our colleagues in the Faculty of Health Sciences. This is Professor Annie Joubert from Physiology and Professor Priscilla Soma from Anatomy. We also have University of Pretoria's Science Center called Scienza. And Scienza is run by Mrs. Puleng Tsi. Puleng and a team find meaningful ways to educate school learners and the public on science matters. We also have significant 5 of our 9 EXCO staff members are also female. We've got Professor Paulette Blumer, our Deputy Dean for Teaching and Learning, Makachwa from our head of our student administration, Jessica Samuels, she's our research manager, Ntando Khadebe, she's our human resources business partner, and Ms. Jawanti Pillay from accounting. The NAS EXCO manages a complex number of portfolios to keep NAS operational and to keep us functional. This is often done at short notice and behind the scenes, and it's for this reason that I'd particularly like to acknowledge the contribution of these 5 staff members. It's often when work is done well that it goes unnoticed, but it doesn't mean that a lot of hard work does not go into it. We are proud of all our staff members at NAS. We're proud of all our female staff members at NAS. Both academic and professional staff members contribute collectively to the success of the faculty. We are proud to host today's event for #WomenOfNAS. Today we'll be discussing some issues that are sensitive. They might cause you to have some feelings. Some of these might be pleasant emotions and some of them might be unpleasant emotions. I would like to challenge you to not shy away from this discomfort. I challenge you to take note of them, maybe even write them down. And after this conversation, reflect on them, about why you may have felt in a certain manner. Our panel of esteemed guest speakers today will be led by Ms. Jessica Samuels, or Mrs. Naidu, later in her life. Jessica is no stranger to leadership roles. She's managed numerous large networks, multidisciplinary institutes, and more recently served as the acting faculty manager during the first year of our pandemic. And I'm pretty sure that was a steep learning curve, and she acquitted herself excellently of her task. She's also the current chair of the NAS Transformation Office, and during her time in these roles, she's pioneered new ways to steward research and find innovative ways for practical solutions to help researchers and other staff members do their work better and more efficiently. Known for diplomacy and authenticity, she continues to be a respected voice on issues of discrimination in any form. Jessica, over to you.
Thank you, Prof. Erasmus. Good day and welcome to the third Conversations at NAS. Today we will tackle the topic, Reaching Beyond the Glass Ceiling. Every year, in August, our country marks Women's Month. We also pay tribute to the more than 20,000 women who marched to the Union buildings on 9 August 1956. They did this in protest against the extension of the pass laws to women. 65 years later, we are still facing a gender divide that has impeded and continues to impede women's progress in the workplace and society. While a lot has been achieved in the quest for gender equality, trends clearly indicate that despite the world's population being almost equally balanced in gender, that is, an equal number of males and females, women are still underrepresented in leadership positions in almost every sector. So what is this glass ceiling? The term glass ceiling refers to the sometimes invisible barrier to success that many women come up against in their careers. Marilyn Roden, a management consultant, coined this phrase over 40 years ago, and it is still as relevant as ever. We are here today to create awareness and discuss how we progress and move past these known barriers that impede the progress of women. All attendees, women and men alike, are encouraged to participate. Comment in the comments tab or ask questions as the presentations and conversation progresses. Please include the name of the presenter in your question if you wish to ask a question to one of the presenters directly. It is through awareness and discussion that we can truly come to a shared understanding and make strides to collectively address these issues. It is for this reason that I wish to highlight that we are not here to point fingers or blame. We are rather here to discuss critical issues that may be covered in some of the presentations. Today, you will hear from a panel that has shattered the glass ceiling in their respective fields. They have risen in male-dominated fields. They have taken up leadership positions and excel both academically and professionally. We will hear from each of them and gain insight into how they have risen beyond their glass ceilings. I am both humbled and honored to be given the opportunity to facilitate this panel today, and it is with great admiration and respect that I introduce you to the panel. Our first panelist is Ms. Gopika Ram Kilauean. Gopika is a master's student in the Advanced Data Analytics and Statistics Department. She is also the intern team leader in the department, a FameLab finalist, and an avid cricket player. Welcome, Gopika. Our second panelist is Ms. Mishloti Makachwa. Mishloti is the head of the Student Administration Department in our faculty. Our third panelist, Dr. Ntombenhle Gama, is a lecturer in the Department of Chemistry, Biochemistry, Genetics, and Microbiology. And our fourth and final panelist is Prof. Patricia Forbes. Patricia is the current Rand Water Chair in Chemistry, and she is the current acting head of the Department of Chemistry. She is also a former environmental manager at Impala Platinum Refineries, and she has also headed the Air Quality Research Laboratory at the CSIR. So now, once again, welcome to the viewers at home. And we'd like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Gama, to present her leadership journey. Over to you, Dr. Gama.
Thank you, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Ntombenhle Gama. I was born in the township of KwaThema on the East Rand in Johannesburg on the 19th of May, 1988. I attended Zitembeni Primary School in the township of KwaThema, and it's here where I knew I wanted to be a scientist. It was at the peak of the HIV pandemic, and when I was taught about HIV in grade 6, I knew I wanted to partake in the discovery of a cure for HIV. I then completed my high school education at Aura Park Secondary School, where my love for biology and chemistry was further fueled. In an attempt to merge the two, I went to study a Bachelor of Science degree majoring in biochemistry here at the University of Pretoria. I subsequently completed my PhD in the same field under the supervision of Professor Deborah Mayer in 2017, and I'm currently a lecturer and principal investigator in the HIV research group in the biochemistry division. Our research focuses on the development of novel drug candidates as alternatives to current HIV treatment that are also effective against HIV-associated opportunistic infections. I currently have 1 honors, 4 masters, and 1 PhD student under my supervision. So apart from my academic activities, I've been involved in several community engagement projects, including career guidance talks at various schools and distributing food parcels to community members in need, especially the elderly, through the social responsibility portfolio at our local church. I am currently the chairperson of the Diocese of the Highveld Gender Committee, which falls under the Anglican Church of Southern Africa. Our country is burdened with a scourge of several gender-related issues, such as gender-based violence, domestic violence, and the discrimination of people based on gender and sexuality. Although the government has many initiatives, the committee has recognized the need for faith-based communities to work together with government and other non-government organizations. Activities include the facilitation of the establishment of various programs, such as community sensitization workshops, survivor support groups, and empowerment workshops, positive masculinity and effective parenting workshops in local churches and in the community in general. These are envisaged to not only offer support to church members, but also to the community as a whole. Additionally, I'm currently pursuing a master's in philosophy and fundamental and systematic theology at St. Augustine College of South Africa. I hope to one day run a multidisciplinary research group that not only focuses on the use of synthetic drugs or plant extracts for healing, but also examines the effects of one's spiritual well-being in the holistic treatment of patients. So overall, I'm passionate about science, I'm passionate about education, my family, and people in general. And I believe that through God, hard work, and determination, success is inevitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gama. That was truly inspiring. I'd now like to hand over to our second panelist, Ms. Kilauean, to introduce herself.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I am so excited and honored to be included in this conversation today with these lovely ladies. This is my first experience participating in a conversation of this nature, so this in itself is akin to breaking a glass ceiling for me. Breaking norms and perpetuating women empowerment is something I strongly resonated with throughout my life. When I was younger, I played cricket for the boys' cricket team in school and was the youngest elected head girl in high school, elected for 2 years. These experiences and opportunities molded me into the woman that I am today. The challenges associated with earning the respect of the boys in the cricket team only allowed me to grow, giving rise to even greater sporting opportunities extending beyond school. This fire and passion burns brightly today, as I am still an avid cricketer, playing for my club, the Arini Villages. I was certainly a tomboy growing up, and in many ways, I still am today. When I was younger, many people would come up to me and criticize my fashion choices to wear my older brother's small clothing. As a young child, the opinions of others affect you quite significantly, leaving a lasting effect on your mind. Many women today are plagued with body issues stemming from the judgments of others, and being a young girl going through puberty, these opinions truly affected me. I felt uncomfortable with my body and tried to change the way I dressed so that I looked more like other girls. However, I realized quickly that this does not make me happy. And as I matured and accepted my changing body, I became happy with how I dressed. I became happy with who I was and what I looked like, not ranking other people's opinions higher than my own. Growing up in an Indian household, parents tend to have strong opinions about what their children should study and how they should lead their lives. It is a common norm in the Indian community that you should only make it if you become a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or accountant. This norm is so deeply embedded in some people's mindsets that I often had to defend my career choices on an almost daily basis. My parents had similar views, heavily encouraging me to study accounting. I decided that this is my life, and I will make my own decisions and forge my own path. It is only now where catchphrases such as data science, AI, and data analytics are so popular that people no longer try to criticize my chosen path. More people, including my parents, have now become aware of how important statistics is and its fundamental role in the changes we see in the world today. Being a woman in my field is something that I feel empowered by. I'm the first female team lead in my internship program in the department. We have more female students than male students in our class, which is truly an indication of how times are changing and how women are empowering themselves. Being involved in programs such as FameLab and GradStar opened my eyes to how radical changes are happening. There is serious growth in female representation in these sectors and a stronger presence of women supporting other women. This is truly encouraging and pleasing to see. We do not walk our path through life alone. I have a group of friends, colleagues, mentors, and family who encourage and support me on a regular basis. I have been blessed with amazing people who motivate and inspire me to keep reaching new heights and breaking my glass ceilings. We are never alone in our journeys, and we are not defined by our gender. If we take a moment to simply stop, look around, take note of those beside or behind us, and simply support them by offering a helping hand, we might just find we are trying to break the very same glass ceiling.
Thank you, Gopika. I was truly moved by your introduction. I want to thank you for sharing so openly with us. And we are going to come back and discuss many of those elements you shared in your talk during the conversation part of our program today. Our third speaker is Ms. Mishroti Makachwa. I'd like to say that Mishroti is a pillar in my life currently. She supports me as a research manager, and when I first joined the faculty, I could think of no better colleague to support me through the transition of COVID and acting as faculty manager. So I'd like to introduce my esteemed colleague, Mishroti Makachwa.
Good morning. Thank you, Jessica, for the introduction. Yes, my name is Mishroti Makachwa. I'm from a small town called Bushbuck Region, Mpumalanga. I did my high school in a school called Soshangan High School, and in 1998 I passed my matric and went to study at the Rand Afrikaans University. I studied there and started working as a student assistant, and as a result I also got an employment as a data capturer. And when the universities merged, it became University of Johannesburg. I continued working there until 2009. And then in 2010, I went and joined the University of the Witwatersrand, where I worked as a faculty officer. And in 2013, I worked at the Vaal University of Technology as the head of student administration. And then I moved to the British Council in 2015, where I was working as an operations manager, managing the IELTS examinations and the CIE, which is the Cambridge International Examination. And then in 2016, I went to the University of Zululand, where I worked as the faculty manager. Other universities call it head of student administration, where I worked for less than a year. And then in 2018, I joined the University of Pretoria, where in my current position as a head of student administration. I had a beautiful journey, in faculty administration, because it allowed me to work with students. And my job is so rewarding because you would see a student in the beginning when they are applying or they come to our offices not knowing exactly what they want to do. But 3 years later, you see them graduating, and you can see the joy in the parents' eyes that, that from the achievement that the kids, have achieved. And it is so rewarding to see this, and I love my job. I always say to people that, there's this saying that do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And that's where I am currently at. I'm so happy today to have been given this opportunity. I think it's the first conversation in our faculty where women are given a platform to talk about their journey and to talk about the challenges that they have faced or are still facing in their daily lives. Because I think this will inspire so many women I've seen so many women in the university who are in junior positions that I feel they have potential to be in leadership. Today, I want us to talk about how we made it, to where we are today, so that those women who have potential can realize that, what is doable. And I would like to thank the Dean for giving us this opportunity. And I wish the young people out there, our students, and also professional staff members will be inspired, to go and break the glass ceiling, because anything is possible at UP. Anything is possible in the country, in our country. There are so many opportunities that are out there for women. We just have to take, that first step and open those doors. So as Jessica said in her introduction, today we're not going to, it's not going to be a blame conversation. We're not going to point fingers. This is not going to be a pity party for women, but we're just going to celebrate other women who have made it, and also share our experiences so that our colleagues and everyone that is watching today can see that it is possible to make it in academia and also professionally. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Mhleti. Once again, truly inspiring. Before we move on to our fourth speaker for this morning, I'd like to ask those who are watching us remotely or joining us from home to please post questions in the question box. You can do this as the speakers go through their presentations, and we'll be getting to them after the presentations. I'd now like to hand over to our fourth speaker, Prof. Patricia Forbes. Over to you, Patricia.
Good morning, everyone. It is tricky to decide what of my 40-plus years of life journey I should mention in 5 minutes, so I will limit it to a few events that I believe had an impact on me and my destiny. I grew up in a household which was predominantly female, as I had 2 sisters. I also went to an all-girls high school, which I believe was empowering, as I was not exposed to many of the gender biases around subject choices and studying. Although I remember clearly that a classmate told me one day that I would never get married because men don't like intelligent women. Little did she know. So coming from a gender-neutral background regarding subjects, I was surprised when I entered university, and that was the University of Natal, now UKZN, to overhear one of the male students in my mathematics class complain to his friends that I had got the top marks in a test and beaten him. "But she's a girl," he lamented. "Just watch me in the exam," I thought. I thoroughly enjoyed my BSc chemistry studies, and I was particularly inspired by a female lecturer in analytical chemistry who was performing research at the time to assist the car manufacturing industry to better understand why paint was peeling off car bumpers, because before this time, all car bumpers were either shiny metal or were black plastic. The fact that she was using her chemistry knowledge to solve a real-world problem sang true to me and made me realize I wanted my career to also make a difference. I was lucky to be part of the first cohort of environmental chemistry students, a topic which I had a natural affinity to. I had been fortunate to receive a bursary for my studies from the mining industry, that was GenMin, which then became GenCore. I was thus required to do vacation work at different mines during the Christmas holidays each year. The first year, that was the end of 1995, I got posted to a gold mine in the Free State. As a woman, I could not stay in the accommodation provided for the other students who were male engineers. I was also horrified to discover that women were not allowed in the tea room at the laboratory, and that the 2 full-time female employees and I had to eat our lunch in the ladies' toilet facilities, where some chairs had been placed for this purpose. Fortunately, my subsequent vacation work at Impala Platinum refineries was far more pleasant, and after completing my studies, I commenced working there with a dynamic team of scientists and engineers to develop a new processing technology. After this was implemented in the refinery, I moved to the analytical laboratories, and I started itching to study further. Fortunately, my employer was in favor of me pursuing my master's part-time through UCT, which focused on environmental science. Thereafter, I was tasked with the implementation of an environmental management system at the refineries, which I'm proud to say is still running. And I was promoted to environmental manager. I was the first female and youngest person to have fulfilled this role. After a while, academia was calling, and I wanted to register for a PhD. Thus, I left industry to lecture while studying part-time. Progress was slow due to my extensive lecturing responsibilities, as I only had 1 day a week to work on my PhD. Thus, it was fortunate that I was approached to apply for a position to head the air quality research labs at the CSR, as this allowed me to focus more on my research and complete my PhD at UP. In the interim, I had my amazing daughter, Juliet. I hope you're watching. My husband and I decided to have only one child, and I felt strongly that I wanted to be present for her. I was lucky in that my employer allowed me to work 5/8, which meant I worked 5/8 of the time of full-time employees, and I got paid 5/8 of what they did. But it was also lucky for my employer, as they still expected me to deliver 8/8 in terms of my research and project outputs. It was only possible to achieve under these circumstances by becoming extremely efficient in terms of my use of time, and the skills I learned in this regard have helped me to this day. When an offer to join the chemistry department at UP came up in 2010, it was an opportunity that was too good to refuse. It is a privilege to mentor the diverse and talented team of postgraduate students in my research group, which focuses on environmental monitoring and sensing. I believe having worked in industry, at a science council, and in academia equips me well to teach and mentor our future leaders, and I enjoy the enabling environment at UP, which has facilitated me to grow in professional stature. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, Patricia. We will now hear from Prof. Blumer. She's unable to join us today, but we will watch a video that she pre-recorded earlier in the week. Paulette is the Deputy Dean for Teaching and Learning in the faculty.
Good day, fellow members of NAS and participants from the broader UP community. Thank you to the organizing committee who convinced me very enthusiastically to share with you part of my leadership journey. I want to start off by paying tribute to the women of South Africa who 65 years ago stood up for their convictions and the great strength and courage that they showed to march against injustice. Them and many generations after them have paved the way for us to be in a more inclusive society with greater representation, but we still have a lot to do to increase gender equality. I was a postgraduate student and a postdoc at the University of Pretoria over a period of 8 years, and already during the 2 periods of that time at UP, I could see a shift in the culture and representation of the institution. When I joined the Department of Zoology as a student, we only had a single female professor in the department. When I came back as a postdoc, the situation had already changed. I have now been an academic staff member of the University of Pretoria for 22 years, and I can assure you that I have seen great transformation happening at our institution. When I attended my first faculty board meeting in NAS, the demographics in the room in the Senate Hall looked very different from what we saw last March when we last saw each other face to face at a faculty board meeting. Even at a later time in 2010, when I became head of Department of Genetics, we only had 3 female academics in the senior management of the faculty. That situation looks very different in 2021. But what I want to share with you today is not about transformation. It is about my leadership journey. It is said of many people that they are a natural-born leader. I don't think that that is the same for me. Over a very long period in my study career and then in my professional career, leadership was not really on my radar. I wanted to be an academic that made contributions in terms of teaching and learning, research, postgraduate education, and community engagement. I found an academic home in the Department of Genetics in 1999. That department was characterized by mutual respect between colleagues, irrespective of your academic rank, and taking shared responsibility to meet the obligations of the department. To my surprise, in 2009, several of my colleagues approached me and asked me whether I would consider making myself available to apply for the position of head of department when Professor Henk Huysman stepped down after 23 years of leading the department. I felt very unsure initially because I didn't know whether I had the characteristics to be able to take on such a huge responsibility. But I took that leap of faith, knowing that I had the support of my fellow department members. Then in 2013, I had the privilege to participate in the university's program for academic leadership. that was the first time in my life where I had a personality test done. And each of us got a color, and I was a little bit concerned when I was the only amongst 12 of us who ended up in the green quadrant. I didn't quite know what that meant. Later, we got detailed reports of our personality analysis, and it turns out that I ended up in that quadrant because I have an almost equal share of people orientation and task orientation. But my people orientation was just that little bit higher, and that is why I ended up in green, and most of my other colleagues were actually in the blue quadrant. The description for my personality type is a supportive coordinator, and I think that describes me as a leader. My success is not about me. It is about working together with a team, and I found that team in the Department of Genetics, later in the Department of Biochemistry, Genetics, and Microbiology, and currently as Deputy Dean for Teaching and Learning. So what is the moral of the message that I'm sharing with you? You will get to certain crossroads in your career where others will see qualities in you that might be blind spots for you personally. Think about it, choose with your heart and your head, and take that leap of faith, but work together as a team, because the only way in which we can succeed is through strong teams and teamwork and being focused on a joint goal. And in our case, that is the UP 2025 plan and excellence in teaching, research, and community engagement, and doing work that matters. I have personally found fulfillment in working towards that goal.
Thank you, Paulette. We are certainly so happy that you took that leap and acknowledge what others saw in you. We are very lucky to have you on our EXCO committee and also as our Deputy Dean of Teaching and Learning. I'd now like to start the conversation and to pick up on a few points throughout the talks. So in Paulette's video, she mentioned that often as women, we don't see certain characteristics in us that are leadership characteristics. So I'd like to ask the panel, how did you keep going to the level of doctorate and professor and head of department and FAME lab semi-finalist when these little notions that perhaps it's not the right path for you or you couldn't be a leader came to play? So can I ask Dr. Gama, would you tell us?
I think, when Paulette was speaking on taking that leap and others actually seeing the leadership qualities or the potential in you that you don't see or recognize, it really resonated with me because I think that's how I got to academia and get to lecturing because I was a TA, so a teaching assistant for third-year practicals when I was doing my PhD. And the lecturer, one of the lecturers, the professors, somehow thought I was very good with students during the tutorials and the practicals. And I was not thinking of applying for any academic position. I was still not sure what I'm going to do after the PhD. And he came to me and he said, I think you're really good with students. And he was appointed head of department then. And he said, we've got this position because my then supervisor had left to be dean at UJ. And he said to me, there's this position that's available. We can try you as part-time and you can interact with students. Let's see how it goes. And that was, for me, it was really jumping into the deep end because I was just in the process of finishing the PhD. And then I'd never lectured before. I'd given one tutorial lecture. And I jumped in, like Paulette says. And I think it's been swimming since then, just like swimming, jumping into opportunities, pushing and growing. So I think that is sometimes the case, that sometimes you don't see yourself as doing something, but somebody else sees it. And maybe after jumping, you actually see, oh, I'm actually really good at this, and you get to grow in that position. Yeah.
Yes, it's all about taking that leap. And Ms. Jyoti, I'd like to hear from you. How did you take the leap to head of department? You mentioned in a profile earlier this month that you did it at 34. That is truly exceptional. Would you tell us what made you take the leap?
Yeah, so it's also funny because when I started working at VUT or Vaal University of Technology as the head of student administration there, the position was sent to me, or the advert was sent to me by a former colleague, Ms. Ntombentsha Mapanga. She's now at UKZN. And I never thought that I would ever qualify for such a position, but I didn't want to disappoint her, so I just applied. I think maybe when she sent me the advert, it was even on the date that the applications were closing. And I was so surprised when I got an invitation for an interview. But I always say that, you know what, if you give me an interview, the rest is in my hands. And I make sure that, you know what, I do the best so that I don't have any regrets. So since then, yeah, I never looked back. And as I said in my, Q&A that you're talking about, I thought the position was a retirement position. And it just put me on a spot because, now my goalpost had to move because now I cannot retire in this position. I have to, look for something higher. So, yeah, I think, when people see potential in you, don't dismiss it, go for it and take that opportunity and take that leap. There is no way people can say to you, you can do this and you won't do it. And more than anything, it's also encouraging because the same people that, recognize or, give you that platform will be there to support you. You won't be on your own. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mishrati. Gopika, I see you are nodding. Do you have similar experiences?
Yes. First of all, I'm so inspired by you ladies sitting right here. I always believe that if you don't challenge yourself, and if you don't leave your comfort zone, you'll never grow. And I'm very much about a growth mindset. So with the Fame Lab and this grad star things that I've been doing, it'll come as spam in your student email and you'll be like, should I buy it, should I not? It's so easy to just disregard it and archive this email. And I said, this is such a great opportunity to just try something new. I don't have to win necessarily. I made it to the semifinals only in Fame Lab, but it was such a great experience to challenge myself. Speak in a virtual room of people that I had no idea existed about things that I wasn't even sure I was competent enough to speak about. And it gave me such a rush just trying something new. And I'm a very adventurous person in many aspects of my life. And I think that just trying these new things, be it science communication or going to leadership conventions, is something that is so great because you can always learn something out of it, not necessarily get a medal for participating. I don't really care too much about titles, but just participating and learning from leaders in industry and in the world and powerful women such as yourselves. I think that's so inspiring. And if I can learn lessons from powerful women and powerful individuals in the world, I can accelerate my growth prospects and just become a better human being.
Okay, thank you, Gopika. So it's about being brave and acknowledging what others see and taking that step. Now, Patricia, you said you have 40 years of being brave and taking many leaps, and you've gone from industry to academia and embraced motherhood and taken or taken some time to explore life and career. So can you tell us about the leaps that you've made?
Before I do that, I actually would like to take a step back, if you don't mind, to the previous discussion we had. And I think it's very important in terms of considering yourself to not let other people actually define you. It's great when people see potential in you, but even if they don't, if you feel you have that potential in yourself, don't let that box you in by what other people think. If I think back to my high school days, I wasn't even a prefect. So it's not to say, and I think a lot of people, they look back in their lives and say, oh, well, I'm here today and I'm here in the past, people have said this, or I haven't been considered as a that. And really the important thing is always to look forward, to take the opportunities when they come. One thing I always like to say is you can't win it if you're not in it. So when the opportunity knocks, you must open the door and put your hand up. Otherwise, the opportunities will pass you by. And even if they don't go according to plan or don't work out the way you wish they had, it will still be a learning experience and it will be part of your life journey, and there will be something positive in the long run that comes from it.
Thank you, Patricia. So I do hope Juliet is watching because we are very inspired by you, Patricia. I know many people in the faculty look up to you. And I want to thank you for joining us today. So earlier in the month, we ran profiles of women in NAS. And Mshloti, you mentioned quite predominantly in your profile that women empowering women has not always been your experience. So we heard from the panel that times might be changing. Gopika has mentioned that she has great support from other females. And I'd like to just probe that from the panel. What is your experience? Do women support other women in the workplace currently? And Mshloti, maybe we can start with you because you mentioned it in your profile.
Yes, so, you know, this last weekend, we had a family dinner where my husband was leaving for Kenya, so we invited a few family members, and we were talking with some of the ladies about female issues. And I shared my experience that, you know, in my career, I was actually encouraged more by, you know, the male role models more than the females. And it looked like I was not the only person, because one of my sister-in-laws even said that sometimes women would just not like you for no reason. And maybe you dress nice or maybe you're intelligent, and they would just say, oh, she thinks she's better, you know, things like that. So more than anything, I think, as I said, I was more naive when I started my career in leadership. I was more naive to expect you know, support from women, and only to find that, you know, that's not always the case. And women are the people who have challenged me the most. And I embrace those women as well, because, you know what, they've made me a better person. If it wasn't for those challenges, I wouldn't have thought differently. I wouldn't have you know, being where I am today, because I think maybe more than anything, every time they challenge me, it makes me think differently, you know. So yeah, so my experience is that, you know, from early childhood, my dad was the most supportive. Yes, my mother is a pillar, but my dad was my biggest cheerleader. And even now, my current dean is very supportive, and he creates opportunities for us as women, you know, to voice anything or to come up with ideas. And even when I got my master's degree, my line manager was male, Professor Durab at VUT. He was the one who said, during the interview, I told them that you're going to get your master's degree, and you are going to get your master's degree. And he was supportive of me more than anything. So as you've currently mentioned, I have different experiences, you know, from other colleagues who have been supported by women. And I also like what Prof. Patricia also said, that, you know what, don't wait for people to validate your dreams. Go for it. It doesn't matter what other people think. More than anything, it's what you think you can achieve.
I see. So there's elements of you have to be your own champion. And being female or of any gender doesn't mean that you'll have support of the same gender. So it's about seeing people for being people, not for being male or female. And you'll find support in various different places. So I'd like to ask Patricia, in your experience, have women been supportive? I mean, you've mentioned to me in the past that everyone has a role to play. So maybe you can share with us your thoughts on female leadership and if there's enough room for all of us at the top.
Certainly there's enough room for all of us. I think if we have more positive and instrumental people in our society, the country can only go to good places. In terms of my interactions with women in my different times of my career when I was working in different places, as I mentioned, industry and so on. Fortunately, when I was in industry, in the mining industry, it is at that time even more so, it is a very male-dominated environment. And I realized that if I didn't stand up for myself, I would be taken advantage of, in the sense that I wouldn't be given the same opportunities, and certain stereotypes certainly would come into play. I remember after a few meetings, the one senior manager that was a lady of the one laboratory, after we'd left, she mentioned to me and she said, Patricia, you must bring a pen to meetings in future, because if the men see you have a pen, they'll tell you to take the minutes. Because that is what had been happening for a couple of meetings before that. So in that environment, certainly there were very few women, and we all did support each other and assisted and worked as a team. So even as I mentioned earlier, I assisted with initiating and developing and implementing an environmental management program. And to do that, I needed partners in the actual plant as well, the chemical plants. And my core team were primarily women, even though it was quite a male-dominated environment. The people who volunteered to be part of that were primarily women. And we have continued, even though I've moved out of industry, we're still in contact with each other and support each other in our careers to this day. From then, in terms of academia, I think personally, in my experience, the playing field is basically open in terms of being the same for men and women. And in my experience, you get different types of people. So you will get some men that support you and some that don't, and you'll get some women who support you and some that don't. I can't say that I've seen a particular trend in that. I personally feel that there's a place for competition, but there's also a place to support and help build each other. So I think that if we do that and we are a positive influence in other people's lives, it will be a positive influence on ourselves as well.
So I think that's so profound, Patricia, where you say we should want to be a positive influence in other people's lives. So irrespective of gender, we should all be aiming to contribute positively to other people's lives. I want to come back to your presentation where you mentioned segregation in terms of the tea rooms. Do you think that in the current setting we have now, if that existed, we'd be free to speak up? And was it quite limiting when you went through that?
Well, it was, first of all, a major shock. And I must say, so I said it was the end of 1995, and I wasn't the only one who had a hard time then. There was one black male engineer, and he had even a worse time because arriving at the mine, they assumed that he was a miner and sent him underground to start mining. And it was only when the mentor actually intercepted this and sorted it out. So it was a difficult time in general. So the first day I went into the tea room because, well, I hadn't been told that I wasn't allowed in there. And yeah, the response I got was not particularly welcoming. And I realized actually I could try and make a point and sit in the tea room every day, but it wouldn't be very pleasant. And I'd rather be in a more conducive environment and not get indigestion while I ate my food because I was getting death stares. So I think we need to choose our battles. And in that case, I rather prove myself in terms of my capabilities as a woman and what I could contribute in terms of improving what the processes they had in the laboratory, and rather showed by example. Today, I definitely think we wouldn't have just, well, I certainly wouldn't have just accepted it. Obviously, with maturity, you become also more confident in terms of speaking out when you see injustices, and that is certainly something that I do much more easily now than when I was still at university or even when I just left university. But I think that the general awareness in the community is much greater in terms of equality, and that has given us more of a platform to be able to speak out when things are not equal.
Thank you, Patricia. So I'd like to hear from Ntombentle and Gopika. How would you have reacted in the situation? Because for me, as a young woman, it's something that I think is quite absurd. I would not come to work expecting that. How would you have reacted in that situation?
Go first. I think I'm also quite shocked that you had to actually go through that. And I think for me, the shocking part was having to eat next to the toilet. It was like, oh, can't even like find a tree or something, you know. So I would definitely be shocked. I think in this day and age now, definitely I would speak out against it, find channels, find ways to sort of rectify. One, and two, probably I'm a bit more defiant. I probably would still sit, and then I would say, eat your food. We are here to eat our food. Eat your food and sit in the canteen and eat your food, you know, and refuse to be, I think they'll have to just drag me out, like literally drag me out of the tea room, you know. I think in this day and age, we have opportunities, and we're grateful for those opportunities that we can speak out, and we can, stand up for ourselves. In terms of things like that, yeah.
So certainly we can see progress is being made. And Gopika, can we have your experiences
I feel very much the same as you. I think we're in the golden age of transformation at the moment, where more and more women are being brought to these levels of power, and more women are breaking these glass ceilings. Even though it's at probably a slower rate than I personally would like, I think that if I were in that situation, first of all, I'd definitely be very shocked, but I'd do everything in my power to make sure that this is addressed, because there's no good reason in my books that women cannot share the tea room with the men and eat with them.
Yes, so thank you for that. And thank you, Patricia. I think there's so much power in what you've shared with us, because we can see that things have changed. And I feel if I was there with you, I would have sat with you and I would have made them move me. But I understand that times were different and circumstances were different. So we appreciate your effort and thank you for sharing that with us. I'd now like to take some questions from the audience. And our audience is giving us some really hard questions. But thank you very much. We appreciate them. So I'd like to take the first question. And our audience wants to know, what advice does the panel have for the ongoing institutional culture survey? So just to frame what the institutional culture survey is about, the university is undertaking a university-wide survey for all staff members to assess the culture at UP. So are there any questions you want to be asked in this survey? Let's phrase the question in that way. And those that are designing the survey, do you have any advice of things they should be mindful for? Can I start with the person is making eye contact with me? Would you like to go first?
No, I'm just trying to think, actually, what can they ask? So, because I remember, I think I did take that survey, but I've got so much work, I probably forgot what the questions were. But I think more, can we work more part-time? Because I think for me, does working part-time, or not part-time, working at home, this working at home thing, is it working for you? You know, because I feel like the past year, our lives and work has sort of restructured, and we were able to sort of put ourselves in, you know, work and life and intermingle it and put it together. That it somehow worked. I feel like, so I had a baby last year, so I had the opportunity to still be there as a parent and still work, you know, and still really, I feel like my best work was done this past year, where I could really focus and really push and push myself. So I think, because I don't think that question was part of the questions, to say, as an institution, can we be open to say, we can do work from home and do it freely without having the thing at the back of your head that I'm not in an office, so they might think I'm not working, where you actually are working. So I think in terms of lecturing staff, that's one of the questions that I would see them asking. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a good question. I also want to know the answer to that, and I think they should ask us, because I also have a young toddler. So while the lockdown had been challenging, I was able to spend time with her and still complete all the work that we had.
You needed to do.
So, and then we didn't have to sit in traffic to and from work. So you actually have more quality time in your day. So maybe they should probe angles of work from home and the possibility of flexi time. Gopika, is there anything from the postgraduate student angle that you think they should ask?
I think potentially from a student's perspective, the possibility of hybrid learning, in the sense where certain classes are definitely better taught and better learned in person. And tutoring with my second years this year has been especially challenging, because we have no interpersonal relationship with them. They do not feel open to ask us questions, even if it's something that they're struggling with. So I think the sense of hybrid learning, of course, would have its difficulties, but just the small possibility of contact, especially for the younger years, like the first and second years, they have no idea what campus life is like. And for me, you know, I made some of the best friendships of my life in my first and second years, and these people have no idea who the person's name next to their name on the Zoom call or Blackboard Learn call, who even is. And I personally got through university through collaboration. Still today, I will ask my friends to proofread my research. We will work on projects together, even though it's meant to be individual, because I believe that collaboration is one of the best things that we can do in this world. Be it work, personally, just collaborating with people and asking and bouncing ideas off each other is so powerful. So I think the more hybrid learning approach, just so that even if the younger years can at least experience campus, even if it's once a week for an hour, just to get that form of cohesive university experience, because it's definitely not the same strictly online.
Okay, so I'm getting elements of we need to change perhaps the way we think of work and how we think of learning. And during the pandemic, we've been exposed to alternate ways of doing it. So I do think that we will make notes of these suggestions and get in contact with those that are running the survey as well, because they are excellent points. Patricia, is there anything that you would like to advise to give to the survey?
Yes, so actually I'm going back to the points around childcare and working from home. So obviously at some stage we are going to need to be on campus more, particularly for those of us that have laboratory-based research. And for some time now there have been some requests for childcare facilities on campus or for the university to facilitate that to some degree. And I'm pleased to say I'm part of a committee that is currently looking into that, that has been initiated by the university in conjunction with unions. So from our committee's point of view, it would be very valuable to include some questions around that in the survey, so we can better gauge what the needs are, even in terms of the ages of the children that we'd like to accommodate, perhaps in different facilities, and how best to do that. So some questions around that would assist a lot so that we can move forward.
Yes, I do recall it was one of the requests that came out of a town hall, a NAS town hall meeting that we had a while ago. So I'm very happy that the Dean and the committees are taking it forward. So I'd like to move on to the next question. And this one is for Ntombentle. It says, at Dr. Gama, I heard that you are studying theology and you are a scientist. What are your views on multidisciplinary education? Is South Africa catering for the corporate needs in terms of the degree fields offered at the various universities? So I think there's about 3 questions in there. But yeah, over to you.
Yeah, so I am a scientist and I am studying theology. And I think it's because of different paths and the different things that I do in my life that have sort of led to me studying theology and finding an interest in theology. In terms of degrees, I'm not sure really if universities, I would like to think that we are catering to what's out there in the field, but I think we are also, and I think it comes with COVID-19 as well, that we are also re-looking at what we're teaching and looking at applicability, especially with the decolonization and recalculation. First of all, just to take us back to context, one. And secondly, we're looking at skills. What skills are required by industry? Is it the same skills that people needed 5 years ago, you know, or 10 years ago? And we are restructuring courses. Like in the courses that we're teaching, we're going into a bit more detail of this is what's happening in industry. This is how you can sort of get into industry and get yourself functioning in industry. Business skills are becoming important for people to have some sort of business skills, business understanding, even the business language, just to be able to speak, you know, the terms. So it's stuff like that that we are looking into when we are transforming or recalculating our curricula. So I think we are getting there. We're not, I don't think we can say, oh, we're fully there, but we're getting there, or we are moving with the time. So as things are changing, we are restructuring, reevaluating, and looking at what are the needs, what does a graduate need when they leave the university. Yeah.
Okay, perhaps Mishkati, you also want to come in. As the head of student administration, I know that you deal a lot with the different degrees. Mm-hmm. Is the faculty or the university in general investigating interdisciplinary degrees or perhaps new degree offerings, unique degrees? Could you share a little bit with us so that the students watching can also get an idea of where we are going?
Okay, so what happens when, for example, a faculty decides to offer a new degree? They have what we call an advisory board, which comprise of the academics and also people from industry. So we don't offer degrees just for the sake of offering it. We're offering degrees in response to the needs of the environment or even industry. So for example, in the University of Zululand, you know, KwaZulu-Natal has lots of farms, and one of the most popular degrees in the University of Zululand is the BSc in agriculture, forestry, things like that. But in the University of Pretoria, it's a little bit different. So you would also find that certain degrees are offered in certain universities, and it is because they are responding to the industry needs and also the environment or the local environment, yeah.
Okay, so we can clearly see that maybe the answer is yes, the university does respond and the degrees are becoming more relevant to industry needs. I'd like to also address the next two questions in the chat line, and these are for you, Mishloti. So the first question is, as a manager, how do you support a woman with potential to achieve their goals in the workplace?
Okay, so I think my team can attest to this. So in everything that I do, I always try as much as possible to get them involved and to also sort of shadow me so that they see what I'm doing. And I always say to them, you know what, if I ask you to do something, go and you do it. Go put it in your CV because you already know how to do that. So I've seen so many people, I've helped so many people with their CVs, and I've realized that, you know, it's like they're very shy to brag in their CVs. And my CV is like 11 pages. And I remember once I applied for a job and they said I must reduce it to 3 pages. And I said, you reduce it yourself, take whatever, you know, pick whatever you want from my CV, but if I reduce it to 3 pages, then I wouldn't be representing myself. So, and another thing that I've also realized in the workplace is that people are very quick, you know, to go to their job descriptions when they are asked to do a specific task, or they say, oh, it's not in my job description. I'm one person who would do anything. You know, for example, I remember the other day, I don't remember what we were discussing at Exco, and I was saying to Jessica, I sent a private message on the side. I said, Jessica, please don't choose me because I can't say no. You know, so I also am involved in many different task teams in the university. And I was even saying to my psychologist the other day that, you know, I'm so involved in so many things. Sometimes I feel so overwhelmed. And she asked me, why are you volunteering? I'm like, I have a fear of missing out. I feel like if I don't say yes, you know, maybe it's an opportunity for me to learn something. But what I've also, you know, came to learn recently is also, you know, to also now let go and delegate and give others an opportunity, you know, to get involved in the different task teams. So my advice is, you know what, if there's an opportunity, go for it. And if there's any platform or any forum that, you know, is available for you to participate in, go there. And networking is also very important, you know, because right now I'm still in communication with, you won't believe, I'm still in communication with people that I worked with at the University of Johannesburg, which was ages ago. But those people are very instrumental even in my current job. Sometimes I would have a question that, you know, my colleagues at UP can't answer. I would pick up a phone and call people that I worked with at UJ and say, okay, fine, we have this problem, how can we resolve it? So more than anything, build networks, you know, put up your hand, don't be shy to brag in your CV, because there is no way you would be, you would go out there if people don't, you would succeed if people don't know you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mshoti. I think you've addressed all of the other 3 questions that were also on the screen in front of us. So I want to take a little step back and I want to chat about unconscious biases. So I think we have the platform today and we should talk a bit about unconscious bias. And the thing about unconscious bias is that we all have them. No one intends to be biased, but we are. And it is the product of how we were raised, or the stereotypes and the cultural beliefs that we have been navigating life with. So unconscious bias is very important because it actually skews the hiring and the promotions in universities and in all industries. But today I want to talk about the gender bias as one that is unconscious, And this is when men are just given preferential treatment over women, to define it very loosely. So have you experienced this, that the gender bias still exists? And can you give us some examples of how you navigated that when you were in a situation where perhaps you were passed over for a promotion and a man was given a promotion, or when men were given preferential treatment? So the study showed that the gender bias actually still exists. So I think we need some coping strategies for our audience. I can see that Patricia is nodding. So would you like to lead us on this point?
I was just thinking of one particular example. So I've been involved with organizing a number of conferences over the years, scientific conferences. And part of that is to choose people from around the world to serve as plenary speakers. So it comes with a lot of sort of, how can I say, there's a lot of status to it. So you can imagine then that postgraduate students attending that meeting, that conference, would look up to these people, hear what they have to say, and see them as role models. They could, in the pre-COVID days when we were face-to-face, there were people that they could network with and communicate with them further going forward. And so what I tended to find in the chemistry field was that at all these conferences, all the plenary speakers were always male. And this is a problem because, you know, many of the attendees were female, and there are certainly many excellent female chemists around the world and in South Africa. So one of the conscious decisions I made was that when I served on these committees, is that I made the effort to secure female plenaries and to make sure that there was a gender balance in terms of who was invited. And I'm very involved now with the Royal Society of Chemistry, which is based in the UK, and it's actually very interesting to benchmark against their practices, because they actually will not sponsor a conference unless there is gender balance in terms of the conference program. So I think that's something that we can learn from and actually implement more widely.
So that's encouraging, that different societies actually want the gender balance. And in order for you to be successful in the conference you organize, you have to make a concerted effort to get a gender balance. But sometimes that isn't always the case. So Ntombendle, earlier you were shaking your head when I asked this question. What has been your experience in your field?
So I think in my field, in terms of gender bias, I think it's not the issue of like it being blatant and just, but it's stuff like with teaching. Somehow you sit there when you're having your teaching and learning meeting, and you find that the women seem to have more teaching responsibility than the male, you know, kind of thing. And you just, what's happening? Why is it happening like this, you know? But I don't know, it's just that it's that men just sometimes do less of the teaching, the interacting with students a lot, and you find that the women are the ones that are doing the more of the teaching and more of that kind of thing. I think for me, and it's not, this is what I'm saying, it doesn't look like it's blatant to say, we will give the woman more work. It just, you find yourself doing that. And I think maybe it's what Mhloti was alluding to, that as women, we want to know more, we want to be part of things, we want to, you know, we want to grow, and we feel like, oh, I can contribute there. And somehow then you find yourself doing a little bit more than the male. But yeah, I think that's all I can share for now.
Do you think it's sometimes expected that as a woman you will do more? Do you think that the expectation is that you will volunteer for those roles? Or do you think it's because women show the characteristics that are more nurturing and that's why we should interact with students? What do you think is the driver behind that?
I think it is that, but sometimes I find that also as sort of a gender bias to say that women are more nurturing, you know, kind of thing, because then we expect all women to be nurturing, and when you're not nurturing, then you're seen as there's something wrong with you, you know. So I think that's also another gender bias that we need to sort of look into, to say just because I'm a woman, it doesn't mean that when I deal with students now, I must always be nurturing and I will always be understanding. And you see with students, they do expect it, that, oh, she's a woman, if I explain to her, or if I come into her office and I cry, and then, you know, she'll understand and things. And if you don't, if you say, okay, I hear you, you're crying, but we still need to do this and that, then you're seen as, oh, she's, you know, she's not nice. She's not a nice person, you know. Whereas in a male lecturer's office, they probably would not go in there and cry. They would go in there, state their case, and if the lecturer says, no, that's not happening, they would accept it, you know? So, yeah.
I think those points are just very valid. I've gone through them myself. So when you speak, you are like citing my experiences, possibly the way that I also lived them.
Yeah.
Patricia, do you want to contribute to this point?
I'd actually like to give an anecdote that I heard from my husband. So I'm very lucky in that I have a very supportive husband who's also an academic. He's a physicist. So he told me, of course, in physics, there are even fewer women. So he told me that the one collaborator of his who's based in Europe, she applied for a position as head of the Department of Physics. And yeah, that was basically unheard of to have a female head of department. And in her job interview, she was actually asked the question that some of the students felt that she wasn't very nurturing. And what was her response to that? And so she answered the question and said, well, if I was a male, would you be asking me that question? Which just brings to home these gender biases that exist. And sometimes they, unfortunately, are rather blatant, as was in this particular case.
Okay, so this is exactly where I was going with my next question that I was going to ask. I was going to ask you about the likability bias. So this is a tendency to prefer women when they exhibit more female characteristics. So when they are nurturing, when they meet your expectations of traditional gender roles. So we know that most leaders and most leadership characteristics are male, for instance. It's not nurturing. It's more assertive. So this likability bias says that when you actually exhibit these leadership characteristics or the more male characteristics, you penalize for it. So you're not nurturing, you're not meeting these expectations. And sometimes you call bossy. So studies show that more women are called bossy than men that exhibit the same traits. And this is a lot for us because it's not a win-win situation. You can never win, right? If you're going to be a leader, then you can't be a woman. And if you're going to be a woman, then you can't be a leader. So how do we get past this? Have you had experiences where maybe this likability bias has come in and prevented you from progressing in your fields? Mishati, do you want to contribute?
Okay, so in one of my roles as a leader, I had a performance management review, and my manager at that time, it was funny because it was a woman, said to me, unfortunately, you can't be friends with the people that you line manage. So like I had to be rude and be this horrible person to the people that I line managed. And, you know, I sat down and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to change the person that I am just to satisfy her. And I will make it as a manager, whether I'm nice or not. But so, yeah, it is expected, you know, as a leader to be this shrewd, firm, and I don't know, maybe aggressive person, like, you know, which could be maybe a stereotypical or the way we see men, you know. But I don't believe that, you know, we have to not be nurturing. You know, we can be nurturing. And I've also seen that, you know, the more you connect with, you know, people that you lead at a personal level, the more they go an extra mile for you. I can always call my staff members in the evening on a Saturday and ask them to do something. I've never had anyone complain because of the relationship that we have. So for me, it has worked. It might not work for another person. Maybe in her experience, you know, being friends with the people that she line managed didn't work. But for me, it worked much better because, you know, those people will do anything not to disappoint you, and they will do anything to make sure that your department succeed. And I remember when the dean joined our faculty, one of the first things that he said at Exco is that he doesn't believe that you don't have to be friends with the people that you line manage. It was so funny because I thought, like, you know, as if he was talking to me. And it was so encouraging, and he allowed me to, you know, to strive and to perform very well as a manager. And I'm so comfortable, you know, with my staff members, with my colleagues at Exco. And one of my staff members even said to me, when you call everyone my friend. And when I say my friend, I really mean it. I don't just say my friend, you know, for nothing. But yeah, so maybe that's the nurturing part for me, and it has worked for me.
I see. So there's these elements of finding our true selves and finding ourselves as leaders, and then challenging the leadership paradigm that is now the more male archetype. So, Gopika, I'd like to hear your impression. As a student, you hear us talking about not our struggles as such, but these barriers of trying to find our true selves as leaders. What do you want when you join the faculty in a few years?
Wow.
Do you want us to embrace this female archetype of leadership? Or how do you see it when you enter the faculty?
Well, based on purely today, I've seen a lot of the main leaders in this faculty are all women. And Prof. Becker, who is the head of Department of Statistics, is also a woman. And I've already learned so much from her, and I really look up to her as a mentor as well. And I feel that the faculty and university already has done such a great job of accommodating women. Women that are mothers, women that have other responsibilities beyond work. Even within my minor workings within the university, I've experienced such great flexibility in terms of schedules, especially with my supervisors, with my manager within my internship program. They've been so accommodating. I don't think it's particularly because I was a woman, but because they understand that we are all humans at the end of the day. And I think that's the fundamental thing that the world needs to realize, that we are all humans, life happens, and sometimes if you need to get A to B done today for work, sometimes it just doesn't happen. If your kid has a crisis and breaks her leg, there's an emergency and life happens. The exact same thing happens with me with my team, being a team leader in my internship. Sometimes my team members, one such occasion was her dog got very ill and had to be rushed to the vet. And I said, I'm sure we can speak to the researchers because there should be some sort of flexibility allowed. And it was perfectly fine. There was no issues at all. So I think currently the university has been doing a very good job at understanding that human beings are working. We're not just working machines. And I've personally experienced that great amount of flexibility in all areas of my life as a student.
Yes, I think that's such an important point, seeing each other devoid of gender. And I think that's why we're here today, to say that it isn't our gender that defines us, it's our capability.
Yes.
And we lead from a sense of our true selves, irrespective of gender. So I might be a woman, but I might have characteristically male characteristics. It is what it is, but as a leader, I shouldn't be judged on that. It should be my capability, and we are all different. So I want to ask Patricia, I think you've been in the academic industry and you've been in these leadership roles for longer than any one of us have been.
You make me feel very old.
It's not my intention. My intention is, is for you to please tell us, do you see this change where women or just people in general can lead from their true sense of self, from a sense of self-awareness, and not have to be assertive and bearing down on their subordinates or even their students? Are you seeing the change?
Definitely. I think that people are very aware of the need to treat others with respect. And by doing that, that's actually how you get the best out of them. To make people feel empowered and realize their own sense of self-worth is very important. And it actually is also a positive thing as a leader to see. I often feel like I'm, leading an orchestra and everybody has their own talents and ideas to try and get the balance right and for people to enhance on their skills where perhaps they're not so confident and to really thrive in the environment that we create at the university. What I tend to always think about is that I treat other people as I would like them to treat me. And I don't think that being very aggressive is the way to do that. Being a leader, you have to be firm sometimes, but you can do it in a way that actually builds the person up and doesn't just degrade them or make them feel worthless for making a mistake. Because we all make mistakes, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and it's to know how to address those and to balance them and to make the most of a situation.
Yep, so I really like where we're going with this. And I hope that those that are joining us remotely will also appreciate that we are not here to gender stereotype anymore. We want to move past this. And these are all practical solutions of how we embrace each other and the differences that we have as managers, as leaders, as colleagues. And I want to go back to the question line in a minute or two. But before we do that, we know that gender-based harm is prevalent in our society, and much so in our university as well. So we couldn't have this conversation today, I think, if we didn't touch on this issue. So in the work that we do, we have experiences of our colleagues or of ourselves. And it seems every year we have these days of activism, but it doesn't change. Are we doing enough? Should we be doing more? Can you share some of your experiences for those that are watching that maybe need to know that they can come forward or there are support for them within the university or society in general? So can I ask you, Ntombendle, what has your experience been within the faculty, the university, or in life in general with gender-based harm, and what are your thoughts?
So I think with regards to gender-based harm, we're living through very difficult times. It changes form, I think, because I think when we were growing up, it was more, it's abuse, you are beaten up, or it's rape, or, you know. But I think as we are growing, or as times are changing, and we are able to define things much better, we are seeing that there's ways that people speak to people that could be gender-based harm. There's ways that people, when you act around exclusion of people, you know, kind of thing, and we're getting all these definitions and more definitions on gender-based harm, what it is and what it's about, you know. I think we are moving in the right direction because there is activism, there is talking about it, there is different organizations that are trying to work to sort of fight gender-based harm and gender-based violence. So I work for the gender committee in our church, you know, which is something that the church is also trying to address, to say there is gender-based harm happening even in churches, you know, in places where people should be comfortable, people should be their true selves. That's happening, and you know, and we're working on getting people to speak up. We're on getting people to also look at gender as it is a social construct. It's not who we really are. It's not who we're created to be. It's this construct and these boxes that we've boxed ourselves in. And since we've boxed ourselves in there, we can get ourselves out of it as well, you know, by changing our mindset. In terms of experience with the university, especially with the start of transformation and decolonization and really speaking around sexual harassment, I found the university really doing a lot, especially the faculty as well, on talking around issues of sexual harassment. I think a little bit more could be done with our postgraduate students, because I think sometimes when we do a lot of campaigns, we do a lot for undergraduate students, staff, and then the postgrads sometimes are just left in the middle, you know, and they're not sure what's happening there with them. But my experience with the university has been, we once reported a case. When the case is reported, there is swift action. There is an investigation that happens, and the perpetrators are called to account, you know. So I've experienced the University of Pretoria, and especially our faculty, to be very responsive, you know. So for people who are experiencing it, especially postgraduate students that feel like, I'm not a staff member, so where do I report and who do I report to? Or I'm not an undergraduate student. You can speak out. There are channels, you know, you can come to various people. The person who reported to me came to me directly, and I had to go to my HOD, and we reported and I followed up on that case. And, you know, there was accountability. So it is possible to find justice, and it is possible to get the issue sorted out, you know. So don't sit and quiet and be harassed or feel like you're undergoing abuse and feel like nothing is going to happen. You can report it and something will be done.
That's very encouraging, Ntombendle. I think we hear different stories and they are varied. So you're all right, UP does have policies that support anti-discrimination and gender-based harm. So I appeal to all those watching to also engage with those policies and the Transformation Office initiatives so that we can speak out and stamp out gender-based harm, either in the university and possibly in society. It will have a knock-on effect. So before we close, we will take a final question from the question line. And I think we do have time for one more question. and that is how can UP better support the fourth industrial revolution opportunities to further support women in science? So for me, I think this is about access, is a critical point, but perhaps I can ask Patricia, how do you think we could support women during the fourth industrial revolution in science?
Well, I think by giving opportunities equally across all genders is important, and creating awareness of these opportunities, because often it's disappointing to hear when after a deadline has passed that we hear there were these opportunities but nobody applied or nobody came forward. So I think communication is very important so that everybody's aware and has access to different opportunities as they arise.
Unfortunately, to all our viewers, we've run out of time. So I apologize that we couldn't get to all your questions, but we will take them on board for the different faculty initiatives as part of our transformation committee. I want to thank the panel before I pass my concluding remarks. It was truly inspirational and an honor for me to host you today, and thank you for coming to join us. So we've heard different speakers today who have dared to reach beyond the glass ceiling. I think that is obvious. And their stories have shown us that you can do it. It's not impossible. It might be hard, but this is not a women's issue. This is a society issue. And it's not so heartening to see that 40 years after the glass ceiling had been coined, these issues are still so relevant and they exist for women. So we hope today that we are crossing boundaries to actually address those entrenched stereotypes and gender biases that exist in society, and truly have meaningful discussions, and that the viewers at home actually have a change in their mindset of how we view gender issues going forward. So I will appeal to everyone, women, men, young and old, that we all have a part to play in this going forward. And I hope that this is the first conversation of many in NAS where we can truly discuss gender issues for a more gender equal future. I'd now like to hand over to Prof. Erasmus, who will close the event. Thank you to the panelists once again, and over to you, Prof. Erasmus.
Very much, Jessica. So to our audience, any discomfort, anything that made you think twice? I think there were plenty of opportunity to do so, and I hope you took the opportunity to reflect on it. So a heartfelt thanks for the honesty and authenticity of our panel members. And as Jessica said, I'm sure this is a foundation to take this conversation beyond Women's Month, so that come Women's Month, August 2022, we're in a different position. We can reflect, look back, and be proud of the progress that we're making. Obviously, this is an ongoing process, and this is a trajectory and a journey. And I really think that the foundation we've laid here will take us forward and help us not just in looking at gender issues, but also in transformation in general, in NAS and in the University of Pretoria. So how do we challenge these biases and stereotypes? What are some next steps? I'd like to challenge you with three suggestions. The first one is to recognize it. Recognize it in yourself and recognize it in others. So once you're aware of it and you're aware of how these present, then you can be in a better position to be mindful of it. The second step is to question it. If you catch yourself thinking of females in terms of stereotypes, bossy or emotional, take a moment to consider why and whether you would say the same of a man in the same situation. Question it. The third step is to challenge it. It's important to speak out and, if necessary, interrupt a meeting or a discussion if you notice any remarks from others demonstrating this kind of bias. You can do so in a kind but firm manner, needn't be confrontational. Recognize it, question it, and challenge it. Let's all do that so that come August 2022, we have a conversation about the next step in this journey and not just the same rehashing the same challenges over and over again. Thank you to the panel and everyone that's contributed to it, to today's event. I really appreciate all the work that's gone into it and all the thinking that's gone into it to make sure this is the success that I'm sure it was, and also on the different topics. And thank you very much, Jessica, for managing the conversation in such an interesting way and fielding questions from outside and also from the panelists. Thank you to Marie Venter and the rest of the marketing and communications team at NAS. I know events like this doesn't happen by themselves. We also Really appreciate for the continued support of Louis Viljoen and his team here at the Future Africa studio. To wrap up, stay safe, look for notices of the next conversations at NAS, and finally, vaccinate. Thank you.